All right, we are live. Welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. This is your brother, Pianki Patah Muntu Nephra Moon Ra, aka DMG. And we back with another great show with another powerful brother. This was my official first guest on Paradigm Shift TV, 2 years ago now. That time flew. But before we get into his spiel and have him introduce himself or reintroduce himself, let me do my usual greeting. Let me say hotep to my fellow Comedic brothers and sisters. Let me say God bless to my Christian brothers and sisters. Let me say assalamu alaikum to my brothers and sisters in the NOI. Let me say Islam to my Moorish brothers and sisters. Let me say what's up to all the atheist brothers and sisters out there. Let me say peace to my brothers and sisters in the nation of God's and earth, them 5%ers. Let me say shalom to my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters out there. And let me say jambo to the rest of my brothers and sisters throughout the African diaspora, be it here in the wilderness of the United States of America or beyond. Y'all know I say that greeting for one reason and one reason only. It's because if you Black, I'm with you. And I hope that you with me. Our different ideologies should not keep us from uniting. And we can disagree without being disrespectfully disagreeable. And with that being said, my brother, please reintroduce yourself to the Paradigm Shift TV 314 audience.
All right, peace to the audience and, peace to the host, of course. My name is Jerome Green, and I go by the surname, The Conscious Christian. I'm glad to be back on for another show. I know I've been kind of like spuriously on here and there, but I'm gonna try to be more consistent with my appearances on the show. But I think tonight's topic is a real interesting one. It's almost like a follow-up from the show that I did 2 years ago, like you mentioned, when I made my debut. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to it.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, you've been playing me to the left, man, going on the other platform, ganking your boy, but I ain't gonna get into that right now. So this is about what you learned since leaving the conscious community. But before we get into that, I do want to ask you, because I asked you, like I asked a lot of people who say they was in the conscious community and they went back to Christianity, or they were Hebrew Israelites and they went back to Christianity. And then oftentimes people who are conscious or who are Hebrew Israelites, they would say something to the effect of they left Christianity and became whatever it is they practice now. So with that being said, you said that you didn't consider yourself a Christian. And I was curious as to why didn't you consider yourself a Christian, or what that story is, because most people have a different narrative. So if you can build on that for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, because I hear that a lot too. And I even heard it when I was in the conscious community. And see, my problem with that is now, because, well, I'll get into my spiel about why I don't think I was a Christian and then address the other part later. But I wasn't a Christian. I can't say I was a Christian just because I went to church. Like, going to church and being a Christian is like, going to church doesn't qualify one for, as being a Christian.
I thought that's what you was gonna say. Go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? And I say that because from my personal experience, yeah, I would go to church, but did I read the Bible? Not really. Did I follow the tenets of Christianity? Absolutely not. It's like I had 1 foot out in the street, 1 foot in the church, but I had not come to Christ. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's where I was. So, and even if you would, and this is the thing for me, like, when people say, excuse me, like when I have personal conversations with people, whether it's family members or just people I meet on Facebook or Messenger or whatever, and they tell me, "Oh, I used to be a Christian," or "I used to follow Christianity. I don't follow it no more." And I ask them, "Okay, so what is a Christian, or what is Christianity?" They don't give me a sufficient answer in that regard. So if you were to take me back to that particular time period in my life, I wouldn't have been able to give you a sufficient answer either. But the thing about it is, I'm willing to admit that I was, I had no knowledge of what it meant really to be a Christian, and I had no knowledge of what Christianity really was as an ideology, and I really had no knowledge of the Bible except what the preacher would preach from the sermons, and the cliche stories that we always hit with during Sunday service. So, I'm willing to admit that, because that's just what it was. I'm not gonna lie and make it seem like I was just immersed in the Bible and immersed in Christianity and knew full well what it meant to be a Christian. And I just was given this so-called illumination, and I found out all that stuff was a lie. So I just decided to, follow, well, not follow, but start, reading about Comedic spirituality, because that would be a lie. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Okay. And I the reason I wanted you to go into that, because a lot of people feel like just because they say they believe in God or the Christian God, that they are Christian. And you just basically broke down why that's not necessarily the case. I'm not saying that it is or it ain't, but I'm saying that it makes sense for you to have to require a little more than just saying I believe in God. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted you to go into that. So break down what led you to the conscious community, like who you studied, what you read, and the things you picked up, and how immersed you got into the teachings.
Okay. Well, I'll say this, and I got to give a shout out to my sis Nefer, Nefer Nitty, for helping me to distinguish between being well read in something and being well studied in something. I can admit that I wasn't necessarily well studied in Comedic spirituality or the worldview itself, but I was well read in the Comedic worldview. And what I mean by that is I read books from everybody from Alefe Kete Asante to Muata Ashby to Asa Hilliard, Dr. Naeem Akbar, who else? Of course, Dr. Ben. I never read anything about Dr. John Henry Clark, but I used to watch his lectures, all the time. Astro Quizzy, even I don't think he ever wrote any books, but
your sound went out, bro. Your sound had went out for a minute.
Itself,
so last thing I heard was
things like that.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Last thing, your sound went out for a second. The last thing I heard was Astro Quizzy.
Right.
So can you go back over that just a little bit? Because the last thing we heard was Astro Quizzy before your sound had went out for a little bit.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I was saying, Astro Quizzy, I would watch his videos because he was the one that initially introduced me to the idea of Kemet, because when I read the book by Alefe Kete Asante called The Afrocentric Idea, that opened me up to the idea of an Afrocentric worldview. And so that got me interested in studying more about Africa proper. Well, not studying, but reading about Africa proper. So there weren't a whole lot of books in the library during that time that actually touched on Africa. So I had to kind of like go to the internet, and I remember him mentioning something about Kemet or ancient Egypt. So that was like one of the first things I searched out on Google and YouTube and stuff like that. So of course, people like Astro Quizzy is gonna pop up when you start talking about ancient Kemet and the spiritual tradition and things like that. So he was the one that kind of got me on what the Comedic tradition was supposedly all about, and some of the, he introduced me to Dr. Ben, of course, because that was his teacher, his mentor, and so it kind of went on from there with as far as like the books that I got, and the the expositors that I listened to, whether on podcasts or on the internet, like via YouTube or on Facebook videos and stuff like that.
So let me ask you this, because I always say this, and this is I'm not saying that this is everybody. This is more so me. I think a few other people may share that share this particular sentiment, but I can't say for sure. Within the confines of the conscious community, you have different articles of ideologies, right? And so some people, like I've heard Brother Berean, who you're very familiar with, he said that the Nation of Islam, the 5%ers, the Moors, all of even the Hebrew Israelites are considered a part of the conscious community. Now, to me, that wouldn't be the case, but to him, it is. And so, but then you do have like Nuwabians, obviously Comedic people who adhere to the Comedic tradition, and different African spiritual traditions, and then and even some brothers who are atheists basically, but still study the continent and study the spiritual forms of the continent from a research and history standpoint, or agnostic, whatever their ideology is. So I bring that up to ask you this: did you consider yourself Comedic, just conscious, or what did you consider yourself being one of these other African-centered spiritual ideologies?
Well, I consider myself to be, like I said 2 years ago, I consider myself to be a student of the Comedic tradition. Because I had went as far as to get the tattooed on my forearm. You can still kind of see it, with the eye of Heru in the middle. I was, I had learned the symbolism. I had learned some of the ethics. And from I guess you could say, theological standpoint, I was kind of beginning to understand what the God of Kemet really was, because asking contemporaries on Facebook wasn't getting me nowhere. So I, after getting a few books on I think one of the books I remember was by Muwatta Ashby, called The Comedic Tree of Life, and he kind of goes into the I guess theological aspect of the Comedic tradition. But he said something that was kind of weird though, because he basically described the god of Kemet as being androgynous. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of like that was kind of weird to me. But at the time I was like, okay, I was thinking about the male aspect and the female aspect, and I guess this kind of unification or dualism, so to speak, between the two aspects. And so I thought, at that time I was thinking, okay, well, you could possibly get androgyny from that particular perspective, you know. So yeah, it was
And, and so,
interesting.
and about how long did you study like the Comedic tradition and kind of do the deep dive?
It was almost 2 years.
Okay,
It was a few months away from being two.
so over a year and a half.
Yep.
Okay, okay. And so what happened um, to push you towards Christianity? Or because I guess the better question would be, once you decided that wasn't the path you wanted to follow, was it a automatic shift to Christianity, or did it take some time for you to get back to Christianity?
Well, it did take a little time because at one point I was just like, I wasn't gonna follow no tradition. You know, I was just gonna, you know, continue to kind of like uh quote unquote be in tune with nature, you know, pray to whoever God was, because I still didn't have a solid grasp on who God was, especially after I left the Comedic tradition. Um, and so that's where I was for a little while. But then I got hip to that, you know, the fact that historically, you know, Christianity had been in Africa prior, you know, long before, you know, any contact with Europeans. And so, you know, once I found that out, you know, I started kind of like doing my own little search. And lo and behold, I caught wind of this book called the what's the name of the book? How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind.
Okay.
And so that book put me onto a whole lot of information in regards to how, you know, it was on the African continent where Christianity actually developed, from a theological standpoint, from a epistemological standpoint, I would say even from a doctrinal standpoint. And so with that idea being, you know, it being exposed to that idea, I was like, okay, so number one, I was lied to about where Christianity had its inception. And I was lied to about how it actually got on the continent of Africa. So, you know, I started reading about how Africans were among the first to be martyred for the faith. And so it's like, okay, where was this when I was in the conscious community? Like, why weren't people speaking on this stuff? Why were they just creating this narrative that, you know, Christianity was just foreign to Africa prior to the 16th century, you know? And so that's what helped me to embrace Christianity. And on top of actually going and reading the Bible for myself, because I still had my Bible. I was close to throwing it in the trash actually, but you know, some in the back of my mind told me to, you know, just keep it. You know what I'm saying? And so once I started actually reading it for myself, and I'm like, okay, so Astro Quizzy said this about the Bible, but it's saying this, or you know, John Henry Clark said this about the Bible, but it's not saying that, it's saying this, or Ray Hagan said, you know, the whole Bible is an allegory based on Galatians 4:24, but he didn't tell you that excuse me, he didn't tell you what allegory Paul was speaking of, which was typological, and he didn't tell you why Paul was using that allegory in that particular chapter and what he was illustrating. So I'm like, you know, I got a whole boatload of lies that I had to kind of like sift through after I left, man, because and it actually goes beyond the Bible and Christianity. It goes into, you know, things about about race. And that's where I want to kind of like get started on my real spill with that particular subject.
I was just about to say I got one more, and then I want you to go ahead and build with regards to what you learned since leaving. So my last question on your journey is from a strictly from a knowledge standpoint. I shouldn't say knowledge, but uh, interaction. Like when you interact with people, be it from the Comedic community, the Hebrew Israelite community. What was the biggest, or what is the biggest difference you see? And you could throw me in the bunch, Cap 10K, the people, the people you've encountered on this channel, whatever the case may be, between your experience in the conscious community and your experiences since becoming a Christian.
Well, I can't particularly throw you in the mix on this one outside of, because the Hebrew Israelites, they hold to the Bible, but they attack Christianity. 5%ers attack it. Those who follow the Comedic tradition attack it. And that's like, even though they bicker and argue amongst each other, that's that common denominator right there that they attack, especially if you Black and you Christian. Oh yeah, you going, they trying to come for your head. But with the Hebrew Israelites, it was more of a nationality thing. Like they would try to throw that whole nationality thing on me. And I'm like, bro, like, you're not gonna get me to believe that I'm a Hebrew, man. Like because I haven't been met with any real compelling evidence that would suggest that I'm a Hebrew some way, somehow, and that the curses of Deuteronomy 28 is actually played out in the transatlantic slave trade and all that, man. I don't believe that. You know what I'm saying? Now I have a brother who's actually a 5%er. And so in my interactions with him, he was all but disappointed that I had actually made that transition into becoming a follower of Christ, because I guess for him, he saw it as a abandoning of logic and reason. You know what I'm saying? I guess he based that on like the miraculous things that are spoken of in the Bible and stuff like that. And so besides him, other 5%ers like our brother Marlon, they've been interested. Me and him been going at it for
since I
a couple
know
years. Yeah. So it's
shout
like,
out to the guy, man.
yeah, so it's like, man, our disagreement is more so along the lines of his misinterpretation of the text itself. So it's like, other than that, I haven't really had too much interactions with 5%ers. And did I go into the Comedic people who follow Comedic spirituality? Like they just, a lot of them wouldn't even let me explain why I decided to come back to Christ. You know what I'm saying? And I know I probably mentioned this in the first interview, but they were just inboxing me all kind of like derogatory stuff, man. But I was like, it is what it is. But
were these people who like you was cool with?
Well, from the standpoint of being friends on Facebook, you know what I'm saying? Because we would have conversations, you know what I'm saying, under post and just stuff like that. It wasn't no personal connection I had with any of them.
But still, but y'all was cool until you switched paradigms, so to speak. That's kind of crazy to me because and you know I don't expect to be a Christian again, but I wonder, like the people who my 2,100 friends on Facebook, I wonder how many of them would flip the script if I became a Christian again or Hebrew Israelite. If I stopped following the Comedic tradition per se, would they, you know what I mean? Like I think about that sometimes. How many people are genuinely like interested in you as a person, no matter what your ideological affiliation is? That's strange to me that people would do that, but yeah.
You know, it's which it didn't really surprise me all that much because I already, like I told you, that was one of the red flags for me, like how they would of course, you know how they would attack Black Christians. They would say this and that about the Black church, and this, that, and the third. So me being a Black man coming out of the conscious community and going into Christianity, you had to kind of like expect that type of stuff because that was their mindset. Like their whole psychology was that, you know, if you are a Christian, then you still are under the tutelage of white supremacy. You know, you worshiping massa, you following massa. You know what I'm saying? You not pro-Black if you do it. And I still kind of get that to this day, that if you Christian, you ain't pro-Black, and you know this, that, and the third. So it wasn't a surprise to me. It was just at least let me give my reasons, because you don't even know why I, you know, left the conscious community and, you know, ended up as a Christian. You don't even know. And
right.
You know,
it's interesting that you say that. I had a conversation with a Christian sister today that we know, and I you know I mentioned it to you. You know, I feel you in when we ain't live, but she was telling me why I stopped being a Christian, and I was like, you have no idea why I stopped being a Christian. But like it's like people make these assumptions and proclamations, and it'd be like, nah, that didn't really have nothing to do with it. And yeah, I actually still go to church with my wife. So it'd be funny to me that people really be feeling like they got you figured out more than you got yourself figured out. But I want you to go ahead and start the build with regards to what you learned since leaving the community and how that kind of manifested itself.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the aspect of the spiritual side of it before I get into the whole race thing. Well, no, let me start with the race, because that's one of the biggest factors in the conscious community.
Hey, now you know me and you be arguing about you taking over white people. So now I'm just messing with you. I'm just
yeah, go ahead, bro. We don't win at it, but it's like without really taking up form, it's just the biggest problem I have with it is not necessarily holding them accountable for the atrocities they've committed. But the problem I have with it is when you have groups like the 5%ers, Nation of Islam, maybe even the Moors, I think, they create these concepts and ideas that actually dehumanize, you know, people of European descent and things like that. That's kind of what I have a problem with the most. And I understand why they do it, because they didn't start it, but you know, they just retaliated to ideas and concepts that were portrayed about us for a long time. So I get why, but I feel like when you kind of like fighting fire with fire. In this regard, you're actually taking on the mindset of the people you're supposed to be fighting against, instead of coming up with a solution-oriented comeback. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you know, I follow the philosophy of Ubuntu, and we'll get into that later. But I follow the philosophy of Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is not going to allow for you, as a man of African descent, to dehumanize any other ethnic group, no matter what they've done. You know what I'm saying? So that's the beauty in that philosophy. It doesn't, you know, you don't have to fight racism with a brand of it yourself. You don't have to create any pseudo-scientific concepts and ideas about another ethnic group to battle this white superiority complex that we all face. You just say, you know, I am because you are. We are human at the end of the day. There is no superior race. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that just kills the whole idea. You know what I'm saying? Like it's no, I gotta fight this superiority complex by creating my own superiority complex. You know, because at the end of the day, we are human, man. It ain't no, we can't take what the white oppressor gave us about ourselves and then, you know, make something else out of it to try to pretty much counterpunch what he created. Just embrace the African philosophy of Ubuntu, you know, and even on top of that, you expressing a type of moral superiority when you do that. You know what I'm saying?
If I may, how did you discover that philosophy, and what was it about it that made you, that let you know this is what I want to start applying to my everyday life?
Well, I actually got introduced to the philosophy not long after I had given my life to Christ. I went to this Barnes and Noble, and I was looking through, you know, sort of, you know, the African centered books and stuff like that. And I ran across this book called Lessons of Ubuntu. And, you know, the cover, of course, the cover looked interesting. So I read the back of it, and, you know, it was about a South African man who had experienced his experience was based on what took place in South Africa during the apartheid era, and how he, I don't want to paraphrase, but he knew what it was to face racism, but he also knew what it was to actually have a white ally. And that in and of itself changed his perspective about race, and how the philosophy of Ubuntu can foster racial reconciliation over here in America. And so I thought that was a very, not only was it refreshing, but it was to me, it was almost an anomaly, because when you look at both sides of the coin when it comes to this racial element that we deal with, or this racial climate that we deal with in America, you just hear the most extreme and sometimes outlandish ideas coming from both sides. And so when I started to read the book and find out what Ubuntu was all about, and how it could be practiced as a philosophy, it just made it so much. It made the answer to the race problem in America. It made it simple, not simple as in from a pragmatic standpoint, but simple as to what the answer is for the racial problem in America.
So you don't think the racial problem in America is simply for white people to stop being racist? And I'm not talking about monolithically either, because I don't think all white people are racist. But I mean, for those who practice racism, you don't think it's that simple? Where if certain factions stop being racist, then racism will cease. But since that seems to be handed down from generation to generation and then reacted to from generation to generation, that to me, that's what continues to perpetuate. But you feel like if we all applied that philosophy, we couldn't help but stop. Is that pretty much, am I mischaracterizing what you're saying?
No, that's spot on, because you can't embrace the philosophy of Ubuntu. You can't live it out and still be racist, because like I said, it's not going to allow for it. Because if I'm a white person and I look at, say, a Black man, a Mexican, a Native American, etc., that philosophy is gonna let me know that the raw material or the ethnic traits or differences should not stop me from seeing myself in that person. You know what I'm saying? And so that philosophy and racism, it cannot mix. So you have to kill one and you're gonna have to embrace the other. You know what I'm saying, in that regard.
Yeah, and I think too, before we move to the next topic with regards to what you learned, I think that's a philosophy that I think you should definitely come back, whether it's on the Takeover Tuesday with Nobody or with myself, or you can come on with like the brother Steven, or another guest, and maybe parse that thing out as a philosophy, as far as what you've learned of that philosophy as a whole, and just kind of parse it out, period. Because one, this is a pro-Black African centered channel, and so I consider myself oh man, that's funny. But I consider myself Afrocentric, Pan-African, African centered, I should say. And so that's an African philosophy that I think it'll be dope for you to come on and parse out. And so either by yourself or, like I say, with one of us, however you want to do it. But I definitely want to hear more about it, as a whole, because it's one thing I think you may have been the first person that I heard about it from. But then when I look back on the history of it, it's been around for a while. But I still don't hear a lot about it in terms of philosophies and ideological circles, be it Africa or otherwise. But you were saying something like that would have more traction. But I guess it's not conducive to money making and keeping certain conflicts going. So it's not necessarily something that people want to propagate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like, one thing that philosophy helped me to learn, and this is real important, even for us, if we're really gonna, because I hear a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of people over the years say we need to come together, and stuff like that. But what we got to realize is that Western culture is very individualistic. And so for us to, if we're gonna be African centered or Afrocentric or you know, whatever terminology you wanna use, we have to repudiate that individualistic mindset, which is Western, and we have to take on a more collective mindset where, you know, it's we have to look at each other in the sense of my well-being being inextricably linked to your well-being. And what that means is if one of us is hungry, then pretty much we all are hungry until that one person is no longer hungry. If that person is lacking, we all are lacking until that one person or two people or three people are no longer lacking. And I honestly, bro, I think we have the resources, we have the spending power, and we have the, I would even say if we really took it seriously, we would have the willpower to actually play that thing out and, you know, really foster some change, and not only change, but some unity within the Black community, man. So, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely want you to come back on and, like I say, kind of parse that thing out, you know, piece by, even if it's a multiple part series. So, but yeah, well, now let's go to the next segment with regards to what you learned since leaving the conscious community.
Okay. Well, we all know when it comes to the origins of humanity, we know what the Bible says about it. We know that it basically says that we come from two people, one named Adam, the other named Eve, how they were created, you know, what caused the condition of humanity, where we deal with what we deal with on a daily basis, and, you know, just different things that give answers to a lot of things that concern human origins and why we experience certain phenomena, why we do certain things, etc. So my thing is, I did not necessarily get that when I was in the conscious community, because it was so focused on this on black and white, and with us trying to take priority over European intellectual thought and culture and stuff like that, that I didn't necessarily get a gauge on if the conscious community had a solid narrative or answer for the origins of humanity and where it actually came from. Because we know that I had read books by people like Dr. Charles Finch in his book, Echoes of the Old Dark Land and stuff like that, where in his book, he posits the Outer Africa theory. And, you know, we all familiar with the Outer Africa theory. But the problem with that is the Outer Africa theory doesn't do us justice as, you know, people of African descent. And it really doesn't do Africans on the continent any justice either, and I'll explain why. First of all, the Outer Africa theory is not necessarily African in and of itself. That theory is the construct of people who believe, you know, they believe in evolution. They believe that we have a common ancestry with apes and, you know, that type of thing. So that actually reinforces the idea of Black people being somehow related to apes. And so when I run across people who hold to that Outer Africa theory, and I ask myself, I'm like, well, have you considered this, that, and the third? It's like they haven't considered, either they haven't considered it, or if they have considered it or they do know about it, they just say they don't agree with it. So it's almost like a kind of like eat the meat, spit out the bones type of thing. But with that particular theory, you can't just throw out the part where they say that you know the earliest humans came from apes in Africa and migrated out of Africa into, you know, other parts of the world, and just say all life started in Africa. Because first of all, you know, that's not being intellectually honest. You know, when you're talking about the origins of humanity, if you're gonna go with that theory, then you have to go with the whole thing. You can't just take bits and pieces out of it to make it fit a narrative. When in actuality, it's actually anti-Afrocentric, you know, in its essence, because it didn't come, like I said, it didn't come from an African, and it doesn't paint Africans in the light that the conscious community tries to paint them in. They'll say that, oh, well, the oldest bones were found in Africa, so we were the first, you know, humans, basically. But they don't tell you the whole story. They just give you pieces of the narrative. With 5%ers and the Asiatic theory, and I know we've talked about this in the back chat, the Asiatic theory is not in and of itself Afrocentric, because it takes the crucible of civilization and humanity out of Africa and places it in Asia. You know, and from what I've read, Elijah Muhammad and Farah Muhammad, they describe the Asiatic black man as looking a certain way, and that certain way, the phenotype, the hair texture, all that is not parallel to what we look like, our phenotype, our hair texture. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, with the atheists, it's pretty much all about random chance occurrence. You know, so that those, I just, to me, and you know, I'm being a little biased, I'll admit it. To me, when it comes to the origins of humanity, the Bible really gives the most, I would say, clear-cut origin story. Because if you think about it, even from a scientific standpoint, scientists have discovered that there's close to, if not 20 different elements in the human body that are actually found in the earth. So in the Bible, where it says God created man from the dust of the earth, it kind of correlates, you know what I'm saying? And dang, it was another point I was gonna bring up. This is the biggest thing. When you think about origin, purpose, meaning, and destiny when it comes to humans, honestly, I didn't learn anything about that from any of the books I read about Kemet. I didn't hear anything directly address those four things. Listening to Astro Quizzy, listening to John Henry Clark, listening to Dr. Ben, or anybody else from the conscious community. They never touch on those things from what I've been able to ascertain. So, you know, again, I'll say that the Bible gives the most clear-cut answers to those four things: origin, meaning, purpose, and destiny. So.
Okay. And you know, for me, I don't necessarily uh, agree. But you and I have had those discussions in the past. But this not a show for our disagreements. This is for you to illustrate, the things that you learn from the conscious since leaving the conscious community. But one thing I do want to ask you with regard to the parts that we don't agree on about life starting in Africa. With regards to that the out of Africa theory and you saying that it actually paints Africans in a negative light, and people don't deal with that particular part of the narrative. Go into that for a bit to shed some light on exactly what you're talking about, because I'm willing to bet people don't even know what you mean by that. Because all you hear is life started in Africa, we the original people, etc. I don't even think they would know what you mean when you say it paints us in a negative light with regards to the Europeans saying that they are the peak and we are the low end of the evolutionary pool of that. If you follow me, but go into that if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So what I mean by that is like I said, they'll tell you that life started in Africa. They'll tell you that the first humans migrated out of Africa were something called hominins. And hominins are basically descendants of apes. And this whole thing about Lucy, that's who they point to. They point to this 5 or 6 million old remains of who's supposedly Lucy. And some people in the conscious community have taken that narrative and they'll tell you that was actually a Black woman. But if you look at the reconstruction of this supposed, first human ancestor, is not, they don't look nothing like what we would picture as a Black woman at all. And aside from that, you brought up the point that according to the people who came up with the theory, as these people migrated further and further away from Africa, they became smarter, surprisingly enough, more civilized, and things of that nature. So it's almost like, and it really don't make sense because
Exactly.
we have some of the earliest relics of, say, civilization, writing, and things like that.
Everything. Yeah. So that it's crazy how people, and I'm just talking about these racist European scholars, not saying all of them. I'm just pointing out the ones in particular who push this narrative. We got I forget the name of it, but it's a baboon bone. That's the first artifact that displays man, and it's found in Africa. The first signs of civilization is found in Africa. The first monarchy in the world is found in Africa. Yet they would like you to believe that the further from Africa you get is where people got smarter and civilization starts springing up. It's amazing to me. But this is the point where you and I divert, is because I take credence to Diop's hypothesis on the out of Africa theory versus the European narrative. But I know you don't necessarily agree with Diop either. And so, but I think that his actually make more sense than theirs. Not saying that because it's still a hypothesis, but I think his make a lot more sense than the one they try to spin with regards to people getting further from Africa and somehow becoming more advanced versus what Diop puts forth. So, but yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people gotta think about. What you just said with regards to uh, the Bible explanation for human existence versus what quote unquote science or you know these evolutionists would entail. Let me ask you this, and then I'll let you go on. When it comes to evolution, particularly when it comes to humanity, what's outside of the descending or having a common ancestor with with apes? What's the biggest disagreement you have outside of that with evolution?
Uh, I think the biggest disagreement I had with evolution outside of the whole, you know, the descendants of apes thing is that, you know, our existence it doesn't really mean a whole lot within the theory of evolution, because like I said, according to evolution, which there's a couple of different theories about how life got started and things like that, but it's void of an actual intent. And to me, that just says that everything that we hold to morally, everything that we hold sentiment to, is really, it's nothing, it doesn't mean anything if we're going with the theory of evolution, because if there's, how can I say, if there's no singular principle from which everything derives from outside of the naturalistic, or what some call the methodological naturalist position, then, I mean, why are we talking about racism? Why are we talking about any type of atrocities that occur in regards to the ways that we interact with each other, if we're just a product of evolution? Now, don't get me wrong, because you know you got to distinguish between micro and macro, but I'm talking about on the macro level, not the micro level.
So go in when you say that, because so you feel as if, so if we are products of evolution, you feel like people don't have the right to complain about injustice.
Well, I'm not okay. So this is what I'm trying to say in a nutshell. What objective right? Because I mean, what objective right do you have to speak about anything from a moral or ethical standpoint, period, if we're just products of evolution? Like, if we're just products of evolution, then slavery, racism, subjugation, all that is just that's just going in accordance with survival of the fittest, basically. The stronger
So
conquering the weaker. I mean, it's really nothing for us to get all riled up about it. We're just products of evolution.
so if we products of evolution, that would make those things okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, because I think I've heard similar sentiments, but I've never quite been able to wrap my mind around necessarily how that worked, and I'm just I'm curious to for you to go a little deeper into that. So it's predicated on the notion of survival of the fittest.
Right, because if you look at nature and look at how say when a lion is trying to mate with a lioness during a particular time of year, and this lioness already has cubs, what does this lion do to the cubs? He kills them, right?
Okay.
And so the reason why the lion is operating not only off of instinct, the lion is operating off of he views these cubs as a threat, even though they're just cubs, they can't really do them nothing. So that's just in that sense, that's how nature works, because there's no moral framework in the animal kingdom, period. And we know that we have something that sets us apart from the rest of, the living organisms that inhabit this planet. And that is a sense of morality, a sense of reason and rationality and things like that. But sticking to the moral aspect, if we are just products of evolution, like, how do we even, from a moral standpoint, how do we even have an objective basis to trust our stance on what's right and what's wrong?
So I'm still we gonna have to, I'm gonna have to hit you up in the inbox, because I'm still a little thrown by that. But like I say, I've heard it. This ain't the first time I've heard it. I don't think even from you, or maybe even my little bro nobody. It still kind of throw me for a loop every time I heard it, because I'm like, so we don't know that killing each other or harming each other, a man raping a woman, molesting a child, we don't know that those things are wrong.
Yeah, we know, but the
on,
question is, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you good. Go ahead.
See, the thing about it is that's the thing. We know that it's wrong, but the question is, if we are just products of evolution, what is it that's inherently in us that allows us to know that it's wrong?
Because the child is being harmed, the woman is being harmed.
That's you giving me the situation, but you're not giving me the reason why we react to the situation in the way that we do.
So, but that's not enough to, like, seeing a person be harmed is not enough for the light bulb to go off that this is wrong. And I always use this example, and I'm now, I no longer believe in the God of the Bible, but when I did, my wife and I, and everybody that's familiar with St. Louis know about Hall's Ferry. We ride down Hall's Ferry, and as a matter of fact, we're on our way to Bible study. And so my wife and the kids was like, look at that man, that white man, he choking that little black girl. And I look, and it do look like he wringing her neck at a bus stop. It's an older white man and a young black girl. And before my wife can stop the car, I'm out. And I'm like, man, get your hand, I confront him. Turns out it's his granddaughter. He playing with her. His daughter married a black man. This was the black man's daughter. This was his step grandchild, but he loved her like it was his grandchild. He ran the whole thing down. The little girl confirmed it, the whole demo. He babysitting. I'm like, oh, shoot. My point in bringing that up is, I was a believer then. I'm not a believer now. And if I saw that happening, I would have the same reaction, because I wouldn't know if a little girl getting choked for real or not. But I'm not going to sit and watch nobody be harmed. And it's just, And so when I just, you just ain't gonna watch a child be born. And so me not being like I don't have like a certain amount of knowledge on evolution per se, but I'm like, so if we found out that evolution was the means by which we've developed into the state we are, I still don't think that would change my reaction to a child being choked, if that makes sense. So I always get a little confusion when I hear that there has to be creation or from a deity in order for you not to recognize or not to have a moral center within you to recognize right from wrong. That always kind of throw me off. And
Well,
and maybe it's a philosophical thing that I'm not quite, you know, proficient at, because it's a difficult thing for me to understand, because I'm like, so you you know it,
I mean,
I just don't get it.
but maybe this way will kind of like crystallize it for you. If we are created by, you know, whatever deity, you know, you don't have to call them Yahweh or anything like that, but if we are created intentionally by a supreme intelligence that has a meaning, purpose, and destiny for every life, every human life, then that automatically gives life or human life inherent value, right? But if that's not the case and we weren't created intentionally and we are just products of random chance occurrence, then what real inherent tangible value does life really have? Like, you know what I'm saying? How does evolution explain that?
Wouldn't it still have value based on the fact that it's still life, though? It's still life.
But that could be somebody could be, if somebody said that life didn't have any value, what if they took that position? Because at that point, whether or not life has value is subject to the individual at that point. And you can't really argue with that individual that life does have value, because if we are just products of random chance occurrence, then, like I said, what real value does life have in that regard?
Well, I think it's still up to the individual, though, because everybody don't feel the way I feel about life, or the way you feel, or the way, and they just don't. Some people don't feel like take the kid who just shot up the other kids at the high school. Clearly, something within this child and perhaps his parents, since his mother said to him what she said, something didn't click with him valuing other human lives, even at that younger age. So I don't think everybody values human life the way others do. So I think it is up to individuals with how they see the value of life, how they look at death, etc. Everybody don't parse those things out the same way as everybody else do, regardless of what they say they believe in, or evolution, creation, etc. I think it's still an individual ideology that kind of you know perpetuates how we value our lives and other people's lives.
Well, I still don't see how somebody who subscribes to the theory of evolution could, from an objective standpoint, place any inherent value on life itself, because life itself doesn't even have a true meaning within the framework of evolution. You know, how do you, what would prompt you to cultivate life, or see life in a way that leads you to believe that if you take a life, then you should be held accountable for it.
That's an interesting point of view. So, I mean, continue to go in, bro. Or are you open to taking questions from anybody in the chat? I mean, we'll go one at a time, but I don't want to have everybody try to come in and bombard you. And I don't want to take no more than maybe 3.
All right, I'll do that. I just want to touch on a few more points.
Go ahead.
All right, so well, another thing that I did not necessarily get an answer to, and I still haven't, was the question of the ontological persuasion. And this is a primary question when it comes to ontology. What does it mean for reality to exist? And that question, again, is purely ontological, but I've asked Nuwabians, I've asked 5%ers, I've asked people who follow the Comedic tradition, I've asked atheists, and I still have not gotten a straight answer that they could give me based on their own worldview. And I found that odd, because as a Christian, we know why reality exists, what it means for it to exist, what it's made up of, and things like that. So, you know, for them not to be able to answer that question about their own existence, you know, that struck me as odd. And so, and this is a question, it's you know, it's philosophical, it's a philosophical question, and it's something that I learned, like I said, I learned about, you know, ontology and things like that as a Christian. But just turning around and being able to ask all these people from these different ideologies and belief systems and epistemological outlooks and things like that, asking them that it's a fairly simple question, but not getting a straight answer is something that I'm like, man, you know, do they need to kind of like reevaluate their own worldview before trying to come at Christians in the Bible, or have they not thought that deeply about their worldview, and if their worldview can actually provide a sufficient answer to that question of, you know, that's based on ontology? And so, you know, that's another big point for me in regards to something that I learned once I left the conscious community, and something that, from my personal experience and limited experience, it's a question that has gone unanswered by members of the conscious community. So.
My bad, I was muted. Okay. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had on that, but we, like I say, we'll get to that another time, because I thought I did answer it directly, but it been probably about 1.5 years since we had that conversation. I think it was me, you, and our brother Teddy on the line. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember the answer you gave. I think it was from the existential nihilist point of view, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. You are correct. Yeah, you remember. You
Yeah, I
definitely
mean,
remember.
I've gotten the thing about it is kind of like the way the question is worded is kind of hard for people to really grasp what I'm asking them in that regard.
Okay.
And so, people they try to give answers, but it's not actually addressing the question directly.
I think you did say that. Like it answered a different type of question, but not quite. Which yeah, I think you did say that. Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
did say something like that.
So yeah, it's that. And you remember, I think the first major show we did years ago, me and Jacobus, when we first teamed up, and we were talking with Metu and Kimra, and the subject was knowledge and belief.
Okay. Yeah.
And so all throughout my time in the conscious community, I was told, belief and knowledge are at, different ends of the spectrum, so to speak. And so what I actually learned after leaving the conscious community is that that's not necessarily always the case. And not only did I learn that belief actually permeates our day-to-day life more than people would like to admit, I also learned that there's a form of belief that's called the tripartite definition of belief. And this takes knowledge to be belief, which is both justified and true. And some people refer to it as true and justified belief. And what this definition does, it connects true and justified belief with knowledge. And so, yeah, I found that to be interesting. In contrary to what I had been taught to believe from those in the conscious community. And I still hear people say that knowing and believing is two different things. But that ain't necessarily the case in totality. So, that was it. I know me and you got to do a show on human nature. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. No doubt.
And, I think when it comes to, what the diagnosis of, when it comes to human nature, what the diagnosis of like the human condition is, what the proper prescription is, I think the Bible and Christianity gives the best answer, but again, I'm being biased, you know what I'm saying? So
Of course.
yeah, but that pretty much was it, man. You know what I'm saying? I'll take a few questions.
I think that was powerful, bro. As always, I think you bring a calm, collected, and very thoughtful and thought-provoking perspective. And you always say something that make me want to challenge you. I have to resist the urge because this ain't that type of show. But we gonna get to our thing, and I'm gonna try because that's what I did want to tell you too. I meant to tell you before we went on. Your boy or your man's in them, Shabaka will start being free on Tuesdays. So if you free on another Tuesday, we can get that thing together finally. And
Okay.
so yeah, we can have the long hair don't care discussion finally. But I mean, I guess the whole crew got long hair. So I'm the only person that got no hair on my own show. Everybody that come on got long hair, but that's a whole nother topic that I don't quite. I don't even know what I'm doing, but anyway, we got our brother Stephen Stephen Swinson in the building. He got a question for you, and then I'll throw the link in the chat.
Man, you got to stop with all of that, man. I'll tell you what, man. I'm waiting for a lightsaber. Man. You just pull out a lightsaber.
What's up with you, bro?
I'm doing good, man. But I got some questions for the brother here now. He's been talking all this deep stuff, man.
Hey, don't he go deep?
He do, man, especially for a guy with long hair.
Hey, y'all go in. I'm gonna mute my mic and I'm gonna step away for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay. I don't have that much to say, but I do got some questions for you. So when you was talking about that stuff earlier, concerning evolution and everything like that, so you come from the perspective that morality must come from a divine source, like a sense of morality or moral code. Is that kind of perspective you're coming from?
Right. In order for it to be grounded in objectivity, it has to have an ultimate reference point that's beyond us. It can't be based and rooted in human autonomy. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of apologetics people that would definitely agree with that. I kind of agree with that as well, you know, because you got to think there is no moral code, and a lot of people I know kind of make comments like this, and I never really corrected them, but I kind of feel like I should now after listening to you. You ever seen folks always talk about how animals treat animals better than humans treat humans or something like that? Yeah. But the truth is, no, they don't. You know, so if we just animals like the evolution people say and atheists say, then we can't get mad when things happen. If we're truly gonna, believe that worldview. So I definitely support what you're saying there. We got to build our arguments off of consistent logic, and there's no consistent logic among the atheist community when it comes to that.
Nah, it really isn't. They don't have an answer that's outside of subjectivity. They just
everything's subjective, and they think somehow that makes their argument sound, but it don't.
Exactly. The only thing they want to do is they want to hold on to this methodological naturalist philosophy that tries to deny any type of supreme divine being as being the head of any sort of phenomena, much less morality. And so that's their tactic, or one of the tactics that they use. So.
No, but that was basically all I had to say on that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much everything else you've been saying, man. It's perfectly sound, And I think we really need to have a show at some point where we really go in on some of these ideologies, man, because a lot of this stuff is straight foolish when it comes to the atheist point of view with the science and everything, which really ain't good science, but they say it is.
Right.
So
yeah,
but
I guess Pianki is still away from
I do apologize. I'm going to step away real briefly here, but I'll be back on.
Okay, bro.
All right.
How long did we have dead air?
Oh, you back?
Yeah, I'm like, dang, what happened? We had dead air. I thought Steven was about to go in for a little minute. My daughter made me some steak and broccoli. I went to try to stuff my face for a little bit. But let me throw this link in the chat. I see Google Scholar, my man's and them has some questions. We'll try to get him in here. Maybe one other person, and then we'll get up out of here. But yeah, man, I thought this was definitely a good build, as always, from you. And you gotta stop playing me, man, and being on all these other people's platforms, man. Come on back to your boy.
Yeah, that's the plan. But you know, I gotta rock with my boy Nobody. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well, you know, if you're rocking with Nobody, you rocking with me. So it's all good.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Nobody, what up, little bro?
What's up, bro?
Back to your boy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the plan. So, you know, I gotta rock with my boy.
Turn your background down, bro.
Yeah, I got you on 2 phones. Yeah, my bad. I mean, I got you on 2 devices.
It's all good. What's
Shout
up
out, Pete. What's up with it, big bro? How you doing, man?
You got it, man. Just maintain.
Man, shout out to my co-host, Mr. Co-host to y'all. What's up with it, Jerome, the Conscious Christian Green?
What's up, bro?
Man, you know, same old. About to go pick up the wifey in a second. Yeah, man, I just want to jump on, man, for a little bit if I can. And I heard everything that you said as well. I think I can stir up a question or two for you, man, just for the audience. You know that I definitely like what you said about evolution and when it comes to morality and morality that humans have, unlike any other life form on Earth. I like what Stephen just said a second ago as well. When we look at the animal kingdom and things like that, their sense of morality is unlike human morality, and the things that we do and the laws that we create and things that we put forward in order to try to prevent things from happening or to punish someone when they do break that standard of morale. And if morality does have a standard, then that standard has to be objective. And if it is objective, then we don't know of any laws that were not given by a lawgiver, no matter who or what that thing is or whatever. So as pertaining to creation versus the evolution method, I kind of already know how you feel, because when you talk about this all the time. I just wanted you to expound, if you could, a little bit more on why is it the case that humans have the sense of morality that we have and no other life form does have that. Do you see a purpose for that?
Yeah, definitely. I see the purpose that I see in that is we are a reflection of course, a higher supreme being, and we also reflect the moral standard of that higher being. And so that's why when an atrocity takes place, we want justice. You know, the God that we serve is a God of justice. And I know some people may throw little objections out there about things that took place in the Old Testament and stuff like that. But overall, the God of the Bible is a God of justice. Some people may not approve of his particular methods of justice, but at the same time, when they feel like he's not doing anything from a standpoint of justice, they pretty much not satisfied with that either. So
right. Yeah, you know that thing that we say in our community, they always ask, where is God to stop all this evil? But then when he killed
the Canaanites and other people in the Bible for all the evil they committed, then it's, oh, this God is immoral. So yeah, I feel you on that. Shout out Google Scholar, man. He in the building. What's up, bro?
Peace, peace. How y'all doing?
What's going on, man?
Good, man.
I'm all right. If I could, I'd like to ask the brother a few questions.
Peace, bro. I ain't mean to cut you off. Peace. I ain't mean to not acknowledge you either.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. I'm just here listening. So I was listening to his presentation, and obviously, you know, I don't agree. So I wanted to ask a few questions.
No doubt, no doubt. It's on you.
Okay. The first thing I want to get to see to gauge how logical the brother is, right? So my first question is, right, there, you know that there are some lizards that can grow the tail back if you cut it off, right?
Yeah. Yep. My iguanas do that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So to that lizard, they can grow tail back if you cut it off, but if you took one of the eye, they can never grow that back. So to that lizard, which one would you say would be more precious, the tail or the eye?
Well, obviously the eye.
Okay. Yeah, that question was just to get a gauge of how logical you're thinking. Now, earlier in your presentation or you said that under a system where there is no God, that life would be meaningless. Now, I put it to you that under a system where there is no God and where this is the one life we get, wouldn't this life be more precious than one where there's a second one coming?
From a moral standpoint, no.
How you figure?
Because what is, okay, if we're going to speak on morality from an objective standpoint, then there has to be a moral lawgiver, right or wrong.
No, I don't agree.
So in that case, where does the morality that you're speaking of come from?
The morality that I'm speaking of is innate in thinking beings, is innate in beings that are social creatures. It's basically, the standard is basically well-being of thinking creatures. And because we're humans and we are social creatures, our social, the way we interact with each other and our social cohesion is more, it's better for survival than that sort of anarchist kind of style where every man for their own. So that's where, in my view, morality comes from.
So what you're positing is that morality does not go beyond human autonomy.
I guess you could say that. Not just human, but because there is some sense of morality in other social species as well, but it's just more refined in humans.
Well, I've heard that, and that is, to a degree, is seen in other organisms. I think that's more of a means of survival than a real sense of morality. But if your ultimate reference point for morality is actually humans, then what do you say about the immoral aspect of humans? Because if you're going to base morality in humans and making us the ultimate reference point, then my question to you is, when it comes to morality from that aspect or that perspective, if we are essentially the problem, then how can we be the solution at the same time?
Because Because you're looking at morality as a problem. Morality in itself
Not
is not a problem.
morality, not morality, immorality.
Immorality.
Right.
Well, like
Immorality is the
immorality,
problem.
it wouldn't be a problem in and of itself. It's a problem because we're social creatures, right? And how we act towards one another affect individuals and it affects the group. So, for example, if human beings were just a bunch of people, just going around killing anybody in their way, eventually there'll be no humans, right? So it is a benefit for us to cooperate and to behave civil towards one another. It's a collective benefit. It's what allows us to thrive. So it's not something where it comes down. You're looking at it from a top-down approach. We're saying no, it's a bottom-up process.
But that to me didn't answer my question. Like if we exhibit the problem, which is immorality, then how can we be the sole solution?
We also show the solution, which is morality. So what you're looking at immorality as this one evil thing out here, and because it's in us, then we are the problem. No, immorality it's a balance. You have morality and you have immorality. If everything was just immorality, then there'd be no humans. If everything was just morality, it wouldn't be. It would be a perfect system. Maybe then you could have an argument about it being a top-down process where we come from somebody. But because it's an imperfect system, that's why we see that it's a bottom-up process, right? If you go back, the further you go back in human history, some things that were looked on as immoral at those junctures are now looked at as moral, and some things that were looked at as moral are now looked at as immoral. So we see it's a system that's been refined by human interactions,
that it actually helps my point.
How?
And the reason why I say that is because if you are giving morality to just us, and you know that we are transitional in what we deem moral and immoral, that still makes us the problem in essence. So if you have no objective standard for morality outside of humans, knowing that humans, as you know, we imperfect. So when it comes to things that are moral, they can transition from being moral to immoral or immoral to moral on a whim because of something that's inherently flawed in us, then I don't think it would be logical to place objective morality squarely on us.
No, you see, I hear what you're saying, but you're misunderstanding. Morality is not something that's innate in somebody. It's morality is behavior, right? So
no, I didn't say morality. I said the fact that according to us, in the way that we think, in the way that we sometimes, I don't even want to say rationalize things, but the way we do things, we transition where we change things from moral to immoral according to, I would say, how we feel or what we want or what we desire in doing so. So we are still the problem. So in order for morality in and of itself to be truly objective, there has to be something beyond the human that I would that's my argument.
No, because you're looking at morality as something that's innate in somebody, right? What I'm trying to get you to understand is morality is really behavior. The objectiveness is the reason for it. And the reason for it, as I mentioned, is well-being, right? You can be moral today, right? And be moral tomorrow, or vice versa. So it's really the behavior, your actions. It's not something that's inside you, and that's, I think, where you're misunderstanding it. What 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 we say in philosophy is there's a standard. Now, the only difference between what I'm saying and what you're saying the standard comes from a God. I'm saying no, the standard is well-being, and that's the difference. But morality that we're talking about is just actions, it's behavior.
So do we
So
have a
where do
potential
you?
dialogue or debate on where we get our morality from?
Yeah, because
Yeah, we could.
I'm thinking I would rather have a discussion, but I'm seeing it as he's basing morality in our actions, but he's not necessarily telling. He's not giving an indication of what it is that's inside of us that causes us to perform these actions. He's saying that it's for the well-being of whatever society, whatever society he's whatever human society, he's saying that it's for the well-being of that particular society. But what I'm saying is there's things in history, like you said, there's things in history that have transitioned from being moral to immoral or immoral to moral, and it has been to the detriment, not the well-being of that particular society, or So I still can't agree with his stance on what
Yeah, but
morality is and how.
yeah, I see what you're saying, but that actually proves my point, right? If it's something innate in us, then there shouldn't be a difference as time over time as to what morality is or how we apply morality. If it's innate, then we shouldn't have to figure it out, is what I'm saying. Because it's not innate, because it's something we it's a process we refine. That's why over time you see changes. You see people stumble upon on on different aspects of morality. They try different things. There's some things that people absolutely believe in that came from a God thousands of years ago. And now we look at that in our time, we look at that as immoral. So that should tell you that it's not something innate. And just think about it this way. Would you say that God is moral?
Well, to touch on your point before I get to that, the innate, there's more than one thing that's innate in us. The reason why morality is transitional as far as we're concerned is because of the innate factor of desire. And if we as for human beings desire something to be moral that's objectively immoral, we put mechanisms in place to make that transition. We see that happening now. So I don't like, according to the biblical text, and I know you don't agree with the biblical text, but I'm using it as an example. Say for instance, how the Bible speaks on, say homosexuality. Homosexuality is not only immoral from a sexual standpoint, it goes against the natural laws that God put in place. But we see in more contemporary times, they've made this immoral thing into something that is moral, even though it's not objectively moral. And so that desire to make it moral is why these certain laws have changed, and things are, we actually see a moral decline taking place in society because of this desire that's in us to make certain things that are immoral into something that's moral.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and this is a very broad conversation. Now that you go to the Bible, even in the context of the pages of the Bible, there are different the views on homosexuality evolves over time, right? And we don't even have to use homosexuality. There was a point in scripture where eating shrimp was considered immoral. Nowadays, almost everybody in the world eats shrimp, except people who may be allergic. Now, that is to show you that morality is something that we have refined over time, right? In originally in the Bible, homosexual was not to be tolerated. As a matter of fact, a man that put on a woman's clothes is to be expressly killed in Deuteronomy. Now, if you go to Romans 1, it's still considered wrong, but it's no longer you should go out and kill them. You should leave them. God will take care of them, and they're wrong. So it's evolving as
So
even in the pages.
Does that make it that's the thing. I think you're using a bad example, because even if the consequences is not the death of that person, it still doesn't make it any less wrong, nor is it any indication of it being transitioned from immoral to moral. So I think that was
No,
bad.
but
If I
No.
may, and I hate to cut y'all wisdom because y'all building real good, and I'm gonna let y'all get right back to it. I got a question on homosexuality and the whole dietary thing within the Bible, and this more for Jerome and nobody, if y'all will indulge. I was having a conversation with my aunt, the evangelist Paula Turner. Shout out to her. And she was saying that the eating of shrimp and pork and lobster and crab and all of these things, as well as homosexuality, were considered abominations. Is that correct?
yes.
And now does I asked her, did the Bible have anything on rape and pedophilia with regards to those things being an abomination? And she kind of thumbed through and looked at some things, and she said no. And so I asked her, so the dietary laws are an abomination, which means this is horrible. This, like, you should never do this. And the same thing with homosexuality, but not pedophilia or rape. And she was like, no. And so I know we use the Bible as a standard, and I understand that. But is it at all possible, and all three of y'all can answer this, is it at all possible that when it comes to certain things, the Bible is outdated? Because homosexuality and how people feel about it notwithstanding, I would think what people choose to do would be less of a precedent than a child being sexually abused or a woman being sexually assaulted. Go ahead.
Jerome, since this is your show, if I could go and address this first so I can go and get out the way so you can take as much time as you need. Let's address the dietary laws. First off, in the Bible, the dietary laws was only given to Israel. And the Bible lets it be known that he gave them these specific type of laws so that they could look a certain way among the other nations that they were around. What we eat as humans was not a moral standard on all humans. There was only a standard put on Israel, and the Bible lets us know why. Also, when Christ came, those dietary laws were lifted for Israel. So that being a moral stance on all humans, that's irrelevant. When it comes to rape,
Captain K gonna disagree with you, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know, but he in the cult, so we ain't worried about him.
Well, I disagree too. So
when it comes to rape and pedophilia, the Bible lets it be known that sexual sins are above all other sins. In a way, that's the biggest sin that you can commit with your body over any other sin. The Bible lets that be known. So it does not place a higher value on dietary laws that were only, and for the people who disagree, we can go pull the scriptures and I can totally show you that those dietary laws were only given to Israel. And I can show you in the Bible why God said he gave those dietary laws to Israel. So you're not disagreeing with me, you're disagreeing with the text. And again, closing up, when it comes to the pedophilia and rape and all that, the Bible lets it be known that sexual sins are the highest sins that you can commit with your body, because the only sexual thing that a man and a woman should do is with each other, as pertaining to the covenant that they made with each other, which is marriage. So if you're not married to a person and you're out there having sex or raping people or pedophilia, then you are committing the highest level of sin with your body according to the Bible. Jerome, go ahead. You can answer that question, my brother, too.
Okay, just to piggyback off of what you said about the dietary laws, from my understanding, the reason why the Israelites were forbidden to eat certain foods is because certain foods were used in pagan rituals in the ancient Near East. And so as a way for Israel to set themselves apart from those pagan nations, they were not to eat certain foods. Now, the second part about rape, if I'm not mistaken, there are consequences for violating a woman or raping a woman in Deuteronomy. And so it is addressed in the Old Testament, and it's addressed in a more broader sense in the New Testament, where sexual immorality is spoken against. And so, I mean, it's there, you know. And I think one of the problems that we have is that we tend to kind of look at the text with a 21st century lens. And I know, Bianchi, you might have heard this before, but that's kind of what it is. Like when you look at certain things, especially in regards to the Old Testament, we put a 21st century, we superimpose 21st century views on the Old Testament and sometimes the New Testament, instead of actually looking at the context of the scripture. We kind of like look at it at face value, and then we make a value judgment accordingly. But that's not really the right way to look at certain scriptures.
Okay. Say, bro, I'm about to jump off. I just want to say one more thing before I leave. When it comes to homosexuality,
like I don't want you to say nothing. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
I know. Not only are we looking at that from a 21st century lens, us being in America, we're also looking at that from a 21st century Western lens, because still today in 2021, in certain countries around the world, you will still be killed for being gay. You will get put to death. So us over here in America and certain other countries, people are not handled that way because of the laws of the land. But that doesn't make homosexuality more moral just because we accept it. It's accepted over here in the law in America, but I don't accept it. Nobody in my family.
Do you consider homosexuality just as immoral as rape and pedophilia?
Me, yeah, I would. I'm not saying that everybody else have to. Man, when I'm watching TV and doing stuff, it ain't even got to be sex, bro. I hate to see two dudes kissing like that.
No. I'm not. Personally, I'm not. I don't want to see it, but I don't consider it the same as like what two people choose to do. I don't consider it the same as violating a child and taking sex from a woman against her will. That's what I mean.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. One of them is just total. Coming from a moral standpoint, yeah, I see them the same. But coming from where you coming from, I totally agree. One of them, two of them is somebody being violated against their will. He's there making that covenant with that person too. I totally agree. I totally 100% agree with you on that. Totally.
Gotcha. All right, man.
Okay.
You coming on tomorrow. I got the young scholar Rocky, and then maybe me and you can rock out.
Yeah, I'm down tomorrow. I thought we were gonna do this interview together, but I know I probably was out of pocket. But yeah, I'm down tomorrow, bro.
All right. We'll wrap. Hey, Google Scholar, you can respond to that last question, and I'm gonna let you and Jerome go ahead.
I just want to give a shout out to you, Google Scholar, my brother, bro. I just want to shout out to you. Shout out to you, Jerome, my co-host, Mr. Co-host to y'all. Bianca, my big brother, y'all already know what it is, man. I catch y'all in the next video, man. Y'all be safe.
For sure.
Peace, nobody.
All right, my brother, go ahead.
All right. I got so much I would. Let's start first with this idea of homosexuality, right? Me personally, like nobody says, when you watch like a TV and you see two dudes, physically, you get that reaction, that revulsion in you. It's a natural thing. It's not something you can fake. But because we're living, thinking beings, we're able to separate our emotions and use our common sense to judge a particular action. I believe it's almost criminal to say that something that is happening between two consenting adults carries the same weight or the same amount of immorality as something that is being done by an adult to an unsuspecting child. I believe that's criminal. It can't be. And any God that sanctions that idea that those two are the same or they equate is just an immoral God.
They both sins though in the eyes of God, bro.
Yeah, but that's my point, right? If you have something like you and your wife consent to do something, it's not considered immoral. But because two people of the same sex consent, or adults consent to do same thing, it's looked at as the same lens as an adult touching a little girl or touching a little boy. I'm not even saying that one is wrong and one is right, but how can these things both be the same? Is my point. It doesn't make sense, right?
But that's the me lying about why I was late to work is the same as a man raping a woman because they both sins. But go ahead.
Yeah. That's my point. That's the first thing. And now I always hear people, especially Christians, say, "Oh, you can't look at the Bible through 21st century lens. You have to look at it through first century lens." But it's an apologetic tactic in my view, because a 21st century lens that's all we have. We don't have a 7th century lens or a 1st century lens to look through it, because we're not there. We can only imagine what was happening in that time. We can't really know. We can garner clues from what was written down, but we don't really know the context of what was happening on the ground. Same like here, we're living here in America, right? And when things happen, we only can, if you've never been outside of America, you only can look at things through an American lens, right? Because even though somebody may tell you or may give you an idea, you really don't know until you've experienced outside there what's happening. And it's only then that you can view things really through those lenses. So that, I believe that's a tactic, right? The Bible clearly states that certain dietary laws are to be followed. It never says this is only for you, for Israel, right? It gives it to the people, right? And it never says this is to be for a certain amount of time and then you stop, right? You look in Jesus' time. Jesus came, he kept those same laws. He specifically said that he's not come to destroy these laws, right? After Jesus died, then we have people saying, no, these laws are no longer to be kept. Nobody even made a point that, I don't remember which one, said that they're not supposed to do things like eat food sacrificed to idols. But as soon as Jesus died and left, we have two of his closest apostles arguing over, is it okay to eat food sacrificed to idols? Like this doesn't make sense, right? If an all-knowing God know that this would be a topic of controversy in the church, shouldn't he come out and say, right, I gave this rule, but this was only until this time, and after this you can do whatever you want? It's what it shows, like I'm saying, it's something that's evolving over time. It's been refined, right? In the olden days, you had to stone gay people. Once a man was caught with another man, they had to die. Come forward in New Testament times where the Romans were in power, and this thing was more, it wasn't really acceptable, but it was more prevalent. Now you don't have to kill them. God will take care of it. Come forward in modern times, it's still wrong, but they're good people, and even in some circles they can be saved. They just need to repent. So it's an evolution that is showing that our morality is something that has been refined over time. And if it's coming from one standard lawgiver, it shouldn't be something that's been refined. It should be a standard. And that's my point about that.
So you feel like if it's one like lawgiver, it shouldn't change. It shouldn't evolve
No,
over
it should be
time.
evolving because God Himself says, I never change. Right?
Right. So it should so basically we should still be it's people should still be killing homosexuals.
That if that's the rule at one point, that should always be the rule. I'm not
Gotcha.
I'm not I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm
No,
just
no,
saying
I
to be
got you. I got you.
logical.
Right. Jerome, you want to respond to that? You still there, bro?
Yeah, I was on mute, but I get the point he's trying to make. But when you look at the when you compare homosexuality and pedophilia, you looking at it from they're not supposed to be compared, which I understand. The act is not supposed to be compared to the other act, but it still falls under the category of sin. And so either way, either way, they fall under that same category, and there's no way of getting around it. Now, when you talk about how you had dietary laws in the Old Testament with the Israelites, but then I think Christ said in Mark chapter 7, verse 21 through 24, 23, I think, he said it's not what goes into your body that defiles you, it's what comes out of the heart that defiles you. He wasn't speaking about, he was speaking on a more spiritual level than just about what a person ate. Because what people don't understand is he was addressing the Pharisees and the Sadducees and how they had changed and altered certain things that were that came from the Old Testament or the Mosaic Law. And so you have to consider that when you talk about these so-called changes from the Old Testament and the New Testament. And even when you talk about stoning a homosexual versus now homosexuals are seen as relatively good people and things like that, that goes back to my point. This is not, we talking about how America views homosexuals in 2021 going into 2022 to how ancient people view homosexuals and the practice itself, and how some leaders of certain countries still view homosexuals in 2021 going into 2022. So that point to me is a moot point. You know what I'm saying? Just based on that alone. But the law in and of itself, the 10 Commandments that he gave on Mount Sinai really, they haven't changed. And I agree with his point. There are people who say that Jesus's atonement actually did away with the law, but it did not. And the New Testament says that it's by faith that we adhere to the law. Never says anything about the law being done away with. And so if you look at it from those aspects, then there really is no significant change from the Old Testament to the New. But if well, I gotta hop off, but if you know the brother wants to have a discussion about morality, I think we can set that up for a future date.
So before you hop off, Jerome, do y'all want to do morality or do y'all want to do evolution? Because y'all, they was kind of entwined, because I think your stance was if evolution is how we came into existence, then we don't really have a foundational basis for morality. Google Scholar disagreed. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I disagree. But I also need to have a conversation on that evolution bit, because I'm no expert, but I it kind of grind my gears when I hear Christians misrepresented evolution to back up their points. Now, I'm not saying that I know everything about evolution, but I know the points that I've been hearing about evolution is just wrong. And so I think we need to go over that as well.
Okay, yeah, let's we'll talk in the back chat and see what we can come up with. Google Scholar, I appreciate you coming on. Jerome, I'm gonna go ahead and let you close out, bro, since it was your show.
Peace, man.
Peace, King.
Okay, bro. Peace, Google Scholar.
Peace.
But yeah, this was a fairly interesting show, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate, being able to come on once again, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna try to make it my business to come on more often. And peace to everybody that was in the chat, peace to the audience, and peace to the host.
No doubt, no doubt. That's my brother, Jerome, the Conscious Christian Green. Y'all heard what he had to say. That's what he's learned since leaving the conscious community. The most pertinent thing I think was, what is our standard for morality if evolution is how we came about? And so whoever want to have a discussion with him, he open to it. Google Scholar is the first up the bat. Both of them is my brothers, so y'all look forward to that. We're gonna see if we can put something together. Quick update on the sister who I told y'all about, who had the situation with the Hebrew Israelite brother. We got the sister situated. She in a boarding house for women. We currently trying to help her find an apartment, but right now she in a good spot. She got employment, so next step, find her an apartment, get her a car, things of that nature. But sister doing well. She got her daughter. The lady who had a boarding house, we've been knowing her for over 20 years. My wife been knowing her longer than that, but I've been knowing her for over 20 years. So good, stable situation. Situation with the brother still kind of shaky. He's still making his threats. I don't know what the situation is with her father, with him, telling her she had to leave his residence. But in terms of her working, having her daughter getting in school and things like that, she's doing good. So we're not gonna lose contact with her. And, for those who are interested, we'll keep you up to date and let you know what's what. But the sister doing real well. So happy to hear that. I talk to her probably 3-4 times a week. My wife probably talks to her every day. So other than that, we're gonna try to keep you posted on what we got going on. The debate with Black Lion Supreme and my brother Nobody has been moved a month back to January 18th. The king of this YouTube stuff that we do, Sarnetta, has a pay-per-view debate on the day that they was gonna do it, December 18th, and that's a brother that the Dagger Squad supports. who's involved with that. So we didn't want to contradict that particular event. So we moved ours back to January 18th. So that'll be Black Line Supreme Against Nobody. It's the Black church an extension of the European church, and is Christianity part and parcel to white supremacy. So that'll be January 18th on Zoom pay-per-view. It's only $5. So hopefully y'all scrape up your pennies and come and spend it with your boy. Other than that, I'll be reaching out to the brother outside the cube to see what I can come up with him for a discussion or a debate. The brother Moreland, the guy body, he stepped up and said he'll debate him. So I've been meaning to text him and let him know, but I keep forgetting. But if you out there, we could discuss that, because I don't know what the topic will be, but he did step up and say he'll do it. So we'll see what we can put together. But so we got some things we're gonna try to do. I don't know whoever watched it, saw the presentation from Dr. Obadeli Campbell. I'm gonna have some more stuff coming from him, and I'm actually reaching out to try to get him on in person over on Paradigm Shift TV 314 University. So just stay tuned. We got Byron Washington, our brother, coming on Paradigm Shift University before the week is out. Imam Youssef Rios will be on Paradigm Shift TV University as well. So, trying to keep busy, trying to bring content, trying to bring y'all information. So y'all keep rocking with your boy. We're going to try to make it do what it do. So until next time, it's been Paradigm Shift TV 314. Google Scholar, stay on real quick too if you can. It's been Paradigm Shift TV 314. And that is it. We'll catch y'all next time, and we'll be black at it. Just peace.